You're tuned into Inside Lowell. Inside Lowell podcast brought to you in part by Washington Savings Bank, serving the greater Lowell community for over 130 years. Make the switch now to Washington Savings Bank. Reverie 73, Lowell's #1 cannabis shop. Elevate your cannabis experience at Reverie 73. Hafner's, heating and cooling homes and businesses for nearly a century. Hafner's, it kicks. And by Boston North Company, restaurant and retail solutions for your business. That's Boston North. And now, time for another Inside Lowell podcast. Inside Lowell. If Lowell is your home, this is your place.
Hello again, everybody, and welcome to another Inside Lowell podcast. I am your host, Teddy Panos, coming to you from the Inside Lowell studios here in beautiful, historic downtown Lowell. Very excited today, which is Friday, September 15th. I had to check my calendar there quickly to know when exactly I was recording this, but we're very excited because it is the first Inside Lowell appearance for someone who a lot of folks think the economic development future of the city of Lowell is tied to. And recent current events have made that even more front and center in the news. She is the Chancellor of the University of Massachusetts Lowell, Julie Chen, joining us here in studios. Good morning, Chancellor. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Morning, Teddy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, the pleasure is all ours. Gee, your ears must be ringing on all of our podcasts because you your institution has dominated the discussion for the last month. Let's start. Let's get that out of the way. We do have a lot of other things we want to talk about because there's so much going on at the university. But what is the latest on the future of the Inn and Conference Center? What do you know as we sit here on Friday morning, September 15th?
Yeah, and it's great to say the date because obviously things are changing on a daily basis. So what I can say is, we're having conversations with the state to understand what this looks like, right? It's something where we want to be helpful. We want to be a partner to the state, but we can't do it on the backs of our students, right? It's got to be fair compensation for what we lose and for what we have to pay for that facility. And, we also do care, like everybody in the community, about what's the plan look like going out. And so I think there'll be conversations about what does the plan for the ICC look like after this current emergency.
Okay. There's a lot of speculation out there about what can and can't happen. So the property is owned by the university through what is the UMass Building Authority, which is a state agency, and the governor has declared a state of emergency. Yeah. Can she just come in and use those emergency powers to take over the building without you or President Meehan or anybody having any say? And is that actually part of the discussion right now?
Yeah, so I think that's something that is always looming in the back of people's heads, right? That we are a state entity. It is owned by a state entity. The state could come and take it. But I don't think that's what this governor wants to do, right? This governor and this administration is not trying to come and take over everything. They're trying to work with many cities and towns and trying to figure out what are the ways that they can find shelter for these families and kids. And it's my understanding, it's obviously migrant families and kids, but it's also families and kids that are here that have lost housing and shelter.
Okay, so that takes us kind of to the future of the facility. And I guess part of that would depend on what's the most likely scenario. Does the state rent it from you folks for whatever the period is and then turn it back over for you to decide what to do with it? Will they buy it outright? Or will they sell it to a developer once they're done that use? What's your understanding of what's going on right now?
Yeah, that is a $1 million question, right? I mean, I think you're going to have to ask the state about what they're thinking of. From the university's point of view, I have to worry about the university and its financial situation. There is a debt on that facility, and we need to be able to pay off that debt. So whatever form that takes, that's my primary focus, is to make sure the burden doesn't end up on the backs of the students at the university. That being said, as I said before, I think it's important for us as UMass Lowell to make sure that Lowell continues to thrive. So we're supportive of anything that would help the community to continue to grow and thrive.
Okay, but you have really no idea of a timeline. I know you've canceled all events after a certain period. You've stopped booking hotel rooms.
Yeah.
But you still don't know what date something may happen.
Yeah. No, we still don't know. It's in conversation. Obviously, I think there's an interest to accelerate these conversations for many reasons, right? One is because I think the city and the community is eager to know. I think obviously the state has an emergency. That's why we're in this situation, right? They have thousands of families that they're trying to find shelter for. So I think everybody's working hard to try to get to an answer as soon as we can. But we made the decision to stop taking bookings in the interest of, we didn't feel it was fair to take someone's booking and deposit and then turn around a week later and say, oh, never mind, right?
Yeah, you don't want angry bridezillas out there, right?
That's right. Part of what we believe in is this is a long-term relationship, right, between the university and the city. And so and between anybody who comes and interacts with us. We want to have that relationship that is a long-term relationship. So we're trying to do the best we can and making it work for all.
Okay, so looking at the long term, so that facility, what was kind of your planning in terms of East Campus, tying it in? Because you've got a big development that's hopefully going to start there, and we'll get in depth on that. But would that facility have continued to serve as student housing? Would it be other type, could it be a place for housing for people who would be working at what we hope are going to be a ton of startup companies relocating to East Campus?
Yeah.
What was your long-term goal for that, and how has what's happened over the last 2 months changed your vision for that?
Yeah, and it's everything where timing is everything, right? Obviously, in East Campus, one of our goals is to build a brand new student housing building because that we need that for attracting students, for enrollment, for things like that. We expect that our vision longer term for East Campus is we always saw that as a catalyst for growth here in the city. It's not an accident that East Campus is kitty corner to the brand new high school, and it's across the street from the entrance to downtown Lowell. And so if you look at a map and you see how East Campus sort of flows into the Hamilton Canal, flows down towards where the Inn and Conference Center is, the longer term vision is that growth continuing to happen, because what we've seen in the past when we've done these models, we build one, it's wildly successful, and everybody knocks on our door and says, can I do that too? And we're like, shoot, we don't have any other buildings, right? Now it's different, because if you look around, we can build that first, second building, and there's lots of great land right in this downtown area that we can continue to grow on. So that's our vision, is that it will continue to grow and allow the downtown to prosper.
And I've had people in government, in the business world, tell me the economic future of UMass, of the city, is tied into what happens on East Campus, on UMass Lowell. So what's that timeline look like? I know you would kind of announce the plans last year, as you were coming on board. You put out a request for proposals. Is the plan taking shape? Do you know what is going to be going in there? You mentioned dorms, but what else? I'm excited about the companies and the job creation coming in there. So what do we know?
Yeah, so the plan, we do have a developer, a private developer. This has to be a private-public partnership because the university doesn't have the money to build all that. It would take us, 100 years. So the private-public partnership is what enables us to do the scale project in the time frame that we're looking at. So the dorm is one piece, right? The other piece, which is critical for economic development, is what we call a co-location or innovation building. That would house, part of it would be university faculty, staff, and students, some university labs, things like that. The other half, because that's the draw, right? Why do the companies come here? They want access to our students. So we populate the building with some of our students and faculty and staff, and then the rest of it is leased to private entities or nonprofits or government groups that want to be here. And then the other piece that is very exciting is next to that is what we call, you could call it market rate. I like to call it young professional housing. What they do is they create, and we saw an example of this that the developer did in Philadelphia, where they create great apartments, but they are smaller. So they're smaller in square footage, but they have a full bathroom, washer, dryer, right? Anything somebody who's a recent graduate would love to have a lot of common amenities, right? So it really tailors to that sort of young professional who can't afford as much as it costs, frankly, to live in Boston or Cambridge, but they can afford this.
Sure.
And then the job is right here. So that's that, keeping our graduates here in the city.
I would imagine you're currently losing a lot of brain power from your students, grad students who are graduating. They can't find someplace to live that's up to the standards of somebody with that education level.
Right.
But also the jobs are important. So how much of what, when it's all said and done, how much do you envision being housing in some way, shape, or form versus job creation? Is there a ratio you have in mind?
It is, right? Because it's a mix of it, not that every person that lives in the housing works in the building or vice versa, but we do have a sense of, how many beds, how many rooms, and how large the building would be. So it's early stages, very much conceptual, but we are looking at, something on the order of a 200,000 square foot innovation building and a, 160 bed kind of young professional housing. So it's of that scale is the first phase.
What's the future of the baseball stadium there? I know your Riverhawks play there, but folks want to know, is minor league baseball coming back? Are the Boston Red Sox coming back in some way, shape, or form?
Well, we hope to know in a few weeks. So we put out an RFP, right? At least a sense of where we're going, right? We put out an RFP for a partner that would be interested in coming and filling the rest of the dates, right? As you say, number one, our baseball team has to be able to play there, right? And practice there accordingly. But there's a lot of open dates. It's not utilized outside the season very much. We want that to be an active, vibrant resource for the university and for the city. So we're really hoping that we'll get some responses to that RFP that will have that same vision of how do we populate that, make that a resource and an active entertainment and recreational sort of opportunity.
So you said you should know within a couple of weeks what the options are?
Well, we'll know in a few weeks. They had to shift the deadline for the responses, so I think it's a few weeks out for the deadline. Now, that's not the end, right? That's the first round of people saying, hey, I'm interested and I got an idea. So then we'll have to go through that process with the UMass Building Authority to say, okay, who do we have further conversations with?
Any of those letters that came in the mail come from Yawkey Way or an organization called Fenway Sports Group?
I don't know. We will see. And we haven't gotten, we're still, most of the time people will wait until the deadline, right? And then they'll submit it.
Is that the dream target? Because I imagine you're going to get some type of minor league, maybe New England collegiate baseball, something.
Yeah.
But if somebody from affiliated minor league baseball came there, is that the dream scenario for you, for President Meehan?
I think obviously that would be great. That would be great for the stadium, great for the city. The thing to realize is that does take a lot of money, right? Because they have, when they bring the minor league teams in, they want them to play in something that pretty much mimics what they're going to be playing in. And so, it would take $40 or $50 million worth of upgrades to the stadium. University can't pay that, right? That's not something we can put on our budget. Certainly if there's an external way to generate those kinds of funds to build, the kinds of things, clubhouse, practice, training facility, things like that, we'd love that, right? What better way to draw folks to the city? But we're really looking, whether that's an option, if they can figure out the financials. If not, then we want to look for other options too that might work in terms of, again, energizing that facility.
So is the goal ultimately for the university to give that property to a developer with the understanding that the baseball team will always have the ability to play there, much like it was when the city, quote unquote, owned it? Is that the model that will be followed going forward, or do you see the university being a partner still in the ownership of it?
Yeah, that's when we're very open. We're very open to possibilities. Our number one requirement is that our team has to be able to play in it, right? And they can't be, well, you can't play this week and that, right? There's got to be some partnership in terms of allowing our team to be able to use that facility. Whether or not we're the lead and they're a sub, or whether someone else wants to be the lead and we're sort of a more of a quiet partner, those are things that we are all looking at because it affects things like who takes responsibility for the costs, right, of maintenance operation. On the other side, who gets the benefit of some of the revenues and things like that. So it's very much we're looking for someone who wants to be a partner with the university.
And that kind of would be at the tail end of East Campus, right? The baseball stadium.
Yeah, yeah.
So when can people who live in the city, work in the city, expect to see the first building, the first structure start to go up in that area? How soon are we to that?
Yeah, well, I'd love it as soon as possible. But we are, with the private developers willing to put a lot of their own money into this. We do have a little bit, I shouldn't say a little bit, we have a gap. We have a gap in what the whole project would cost and how much the private developer can put in. And that's where we are looking and hoping that we can get some support, whether it's from the state or other sources. The state could have a big role in economic development here in the city by helping us with that gap. Yeah.
Now, when you talk about innovation, I immediately think of something along the lines of 110 Canal and what you have there.
Yeah.
How would this differ, what you're hoping for at East Campus? How would that differ? Would that have actual factory or production space? My mind goes right to robotics. Every time I see you, you didn't bring the dog. I'm very disappointed.
I didn't bring it. Sorry. The dog wanted to sleep in today.
I don't blame him. He's a lot smarter than I am. But what exactly are we talking? What type of industries do you hope to draw in there?
Yeah. So robotics is certainly one, right? We know that robotics and automation and human robot or autonomous, right? That's a growth area across many different sectors, and it's a strength of ours. It's really one of our where we are ahead of so many others, and so that is something that we anticipate would be part of the effort. I think computer science and how it fits across many different areas, whether it's healthcare, whether it's business, right? I think the main difference between, we sort of see 110 Canal as a great pilot of that we can grow from into this new space. I think the main difference, when you ask what's the difference between that and this, the difference is 110 Canal, we have students working there, but it's not a huge number of students and faculty. In this new building, there will be, a large number of students and faculty and staff in the building.
Hence the need to kind of have students, have it located close to where students live and so on.
Exactly. We let that vision of they roll out of their dorm, right? They walk across the street, they can work at a paid internship, then they go to class, right? So it's not this, they can in the same time be going to class and getting that paid internship, and the company gets that opportunity to, as we say, recruit them in many ways.
You perfectly transitioned me to where I want to go. You mentioned paid internships. I remember at your inauguration. Although you'd been on the job for 9 months before you got inaugurated, right?
Well, they like to do that because normally, right, a lot of times the president and chancellor is coming from outside. And so, you can't drop them in on day one and tell them to talk about their vision for right? And usually give them a little time. For me, it felt like you know me, I've been here. But,
exactly. Yeah. But you mentioned that as one of your number one goals. You want every student who comes through the university to have an opportunity to have a paid, very important, paid opportunity to work in the field that they want to work in.
Yes.
How do you accomplish that for, what are you, close to 20,000 students? Or give or take a couple?
Yeah. Well, we're starting with the undergrads.
Okay.
And recognize that we have 4 years for them to get that opportunity. We do hope they do more than one, but we're guaranteeing at least one over those 4-year period. The amazing thing is I don't make a promise like that lightly, right? I want to know. And so I talked to my people and they worked it all out. We would need on the order of, 3,000 to 3,500 opportunities a year, right? To make that promise happen. When they did the calculation of what we already have, we were already at 2,000, and that was even without really trying. So it's a matter of being more intentional about so many of the companies we talk to say, I need your students, right? And now what we want, we have a way where we can connect them better to our students so that it's the matching process more than we suddenly have to create thousands more jobs.
What other initiatives that you highlighted on that day have you already undertaken? What's already changed from Chancellor Maloney to Chancellor Chen?
Well, and I would say it's a continued building on the foundation that both Chancellor Meehan and Chancellor Maloney before me developed. I think one example is we talk about being a Research One institution. Top 4% in the country is that group that we are rapidly approaching, and so we are at over 111 million a year in research. That was last year's number. This year is going to be even higher. And what that means is that we will be in that group of universities where you can't say, oh, it's cheaper, therefore it's not as good. Right? We are in that top group of universities, and our students have the opportunity to be involved in knowledge creation, to understand what it means to create new knowledge, not just repeat something that someone else developed.
Yeah, I don't think the layperson, and I'm putting myself in there, fully understands what does it mean to be a research university as opposed to that nice little school that I went to back in 1985 through 87 or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
What does a top-notch research university mean?
Yeah, it means that the faculty at the university that are involved in research are, as I said, creating new knowledge, right? So they are oftentimes bringing in research dollars that will fund graduate students or will fund undergraduates. And most people think of it as doing things in the lab, right? Creating that next device that detects some sort of disease more quickly, or creating sort of a better computer algorithm to understand what is translate languages or things like that. So there's everything from in the lab research to our faculty that are trying to understand in the how do we reduce human trafficking? How do we address problems like that? So it's really faculty that brings students into that. What are the problems that we're trying to solve? And what are the different things that we can do? Sustainability, big climate change, big problem, right? Our plastics engineering department is leading in terms of understanding how do we address this issue of plastics? How do we make them more friendly to the environment? How do we make them more reusable, right?
That's actually, I'm glad you brought that up because, you know, one of the things that amazes me, UMass Lowell forever has been known as a plastics engineering. Plastic is such a part of our life every day, and yet it seems to be a lot, because it's made through petroleum products, it seems to be public enemy number one. How do you kind of keep that identity going? Like, what kind of things, what kind of innovations are you working on to make sure that plastics don't completely disappear, but that they don't become an environmental detriment to the degree folks say they are?
Yeah, and that is actually the role our plastics engineering department is involved in, because if you want to solve that problem, you need to understand it, and our plastics faculty are the best positioned to understand how do you, and they are working on this, right? How do you generate plastics from non-petroleum resources? How do you generate a plastic that will degrade more easily or won't break up into microplastics in the water environment? Or how do you do a better job of making that whole process in terms of life cycle beneficial in terms of the environment? So it's something that we feel very strongly that we can be part of the solution. And so students that want to be part of the solution, they should come here.
Not a bad selling point. So we know forever, we've known about the plastics engineering and the engineering department in general. We know kind of where your expertise are, you know, biosciences and robotics and that stuff. What's one program? What's one specific program at the university that people underrate in your mind that's up there? You know, I know a little about the nursing program through my wife, and that's very highly acclaimed. I know it used to be an educational school back in the day, right? When it was Lowell as opposed to Lowell Tech. But what's one sleeper program out there that people don't know about but should know? What brings you pride?
They may know, I would hope they know about it, but you mentioned education, right? Education is, we're in nursing, right? These are two areas where there's such shortages, nursing and education. And I'm really proud. The other day, I had the chance to see a little kickoff for the Grow Your Own program. It was a partnership. We have it with Lowell. We now have it with Lawrence. And it's our education faculty working with high school students in those cities, getting them accelerated into an education program so that they can quickly end up going back into those cities and towns and to be an educator, to be a teacher. I think that is so important because, first of all, there's a shortage, and there's particularly a shortage of teachers that look like the students in those cities.
I wanted to ask that because I know probably going back 5 years now, there was a big push to try to reach out to the communities that normally don't get into teaching and say, hey, listen, you're in a city that's, oh God, so many different, 70 different languages spoken.
Yes.
Have you made progress in that? How is that effort going?
Yeah, and I think that Grow Your Own program is a great example that we want to figure out how to scale. The Lawrence one was thanks to some support from the state, from the education, secondary education, elementary group. But it's a matter of scaling that, because I've talked to a lot of superintendents around the state, and number 1 or 2 on their list is we need more teachers, and we need more teachers that look like our student population. So if we can figure out, it's been a great program, we want a next step, figure out how do we scale that.
And for those who might be saying, oh, all these flowery words, and yet it's UMass, oh, it's right down the street, I drive by it every day, blah, blah, blah. The Wall Street Journal, which has a little bit of a, reputation for being a top-notch entity, recently rated UMass Lowell the #1 public university in all of Massachusetts. It's a story you can find on InsideLowell.com. We posted it last Friday, and a lot of people have seen that. That's going to bring you a tremendous sense of pride. I mean, it basically surpassing all the other UMass campuses. When at one point UMass Lowell was like the little, the Cinderella, right? The stepchild, right? You've now become the belle of the ball, so to speak. Talk about what that means going forward and how you can build on that.
Yeah, we are particularly proud of that ranking because it focuses on student outcomes, right? When people go, well, how does that differ from the U.S. News one, right? The U.S. News ones, at least, they're changing their model too, but there's a lot that depends on dollars, right? How big is your endowment? How much money do you spend on, right? And so it's hard to compete, frankly, against some of the schools that have more money than we do. The Wall Street Journal ranking focuses on student outcomes, learning environment, and diversity. So those are things that are very important to us. And the fact that our students graduate and do well, that's something we're very proud of. The other thing is, when we saw what the metric was, we weren't surprised that we ended up #1 because consistently entities like PayScale have always ranked us #1, not only in the state, but in the region in terms of return on investment for our students.
Yeah, and that has to take on added significance today because we're starting to see some studies that depending on what you major in and what your skill is when you come out of college, it may not be worth it as much. So kind of looking at where your top areas are, I think that bodes well for UMass Lowell's future because you're already positioned where the future is going.
That's right. And again, going back to the conversation about the paid internships, right? That's a key piece for students to figure out what they want to do, right? What they get excited about, and for them to start to build that network, that professional network that we know is so important in getting you that first job and then that second and third in your career.
Julie Chen, Chancellor from UMass Lowell. Thank you so much for joining us here in our studios. Look forward to having you back periodically for updates on this stuff. And hopefully at some point we get an answer on the ICC, but more importantly, we have some clarity on the future of that really important facility to our city.
Great. Thanks very much, Teddy.
Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us as well. InsideLowell.com, as we like to say, if Lowell is your home, this is your place. Till next time, stay safe, everybody.